to the next video in our course. So we've already talked about geometry figures. Now we're going to start talking about other properties of these figures. Specifically, we're going to go into their measurements of perimeter, circumference, area, volume, and surface area. Today we're going to focus on perimeter and circumference, which is in section 1 or 10.4 in your textbook. So what is perimeter? Perimeter is the sum of the lengths of the sides of an enclosed region. Now, we can simplify this by saying, if it is a shape, then the sum of the sides is the perimeter. So if I have a triangle, for example, and I have 3 sides, 4, 5, and 6, then the perimeter would be 4 plus 5 plus 6. Perimeter is based on or calculated by the measurements of the sides, which makes sense because that's the definition. The definition tells you what to do to how to find perimeter. Now, the only shape that doesn't quite fit that definition would be a circle. A circle doesn't technically have sides, so we call that the circumference. However, we can still find the circumference, which is the circle's perimeter, by using the radius. The basic shapes have formulas used to find perimeters. We're going to focus on 4 formulas, but really you only need 1 for perimeter because the definition is so straightforward. But here are the 4 that I'm going to highlight: triangle, square, rectangle, and circle. By definition, the perimeter of a shape is the sum of its sides. So when it comes to a triangle, if we simply add the 3 sides together, we get the perimeter. If we have a square, then what we have is a rectangle where all 4 sides are the same measurement, or they're all congruent. So to find the perimeter of a square, we simply need to know one side and multiply it by 4, because by definition it would be s plus s plus s plus s, but it's the same thing as 4 times s. When it comes to a rectangle, the property of the rectangle is that its opposite sides are congruent. What that means is that if I know 2 of the 2 adjacent sides, that means I know all 4 sides. So we can simplify the formula by doing the perimeter is equal to 2 times L plus 2 times W, where L and W are the lengths of the 2 adjacent sides or dimensions of the rectangle. The only one you really need to have memorized is going to be the circumference, because again, with the circle not having sides per se, it's hard to calculate the perimeter just by looking at the figure. We find the circumference of a circle by multiplying its radius, r, to 2 times pi. Somebody figured out long ago, I can't remember his name, which is really bad for me, but they figured out the ratio between the circumference and radius is always pi, or circumference over diameter is pi, and that's how we get the formula for circumference. So let's look at a couple of examples. Let's first look at the triangle here. If the triangle has sides 7, 7, and 6, then all we need to do to find the perimeter of the triangle is to add them together. 7 plus 7 plus 6, which gives me 20. You'll notice that I have the word units here. Perimeter is a calculated measurement. It is a measurement which therefore has to have units. Now these units could be inches, meters, centimeters, yards, feet, and usually it's labeled. If it's not labeled, we just use the word units to simplify that. We don't know what the units are, but whatever it is, this is the measurement. When it comes to a rectangle, we know that we have the formula 2 times P equals 2 times L plus 2 times W. So as long as we know the 2 sides that are adjacent to each other, we can find the perimeter. 2 times 4 plus 2 times 11. That gives me 8 plus 22, which gives me a total of 30. Again, the word units is at the end to signify that this is a measurement of some kind. Finally, we have this shape. This is not a regular shape that we are used to seeing. So we're going to fall back to the definition of perimeter to figure it out. The definition of perimeter is simply the sum of the sides of the figure. So in this case, it would be 8 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 8 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, which gives you a total of 28 units. So let's go ahead and practice some examples here. Here we're going to give descriptions to find descriptions of the shapes. In the next slide, we're going to look at actual figures. So let's find the perimeter of a rectangle with dimensions 5 inches and 19 inches. What I like to do is I like to draw a picture. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a picture of this rectangle. Oops, oh, that's a little off, that's okay. So the dimensions means length and width, or width and length. How you label your rectangle is up to you. But I'm going to do my short side is 5 inches and my long side is 19 inches. We have the formula of P equals 2L plus 2W. We need to determine which one we want to have as L and which one we have to have W. Honestly, when it comes to just calculating the perimeter, it does not matter which is your L and which is your W. So here, I'm just going to plug in 5 for L and 19 for W. Now this gives me 10 plus 38, which gives me 48. Now the measurement is in inches, so this will be 48 inches. And we're done. We just had to find the perimeter. So now in the next problem we say, where it says to find the circumference of a circle that has a radius of 22 centimeters. Give an exact answer, then an approximate answer to 2 decimal places. So what we have is a circle, and we're given that we have a radius of 22 centimeters. Now at the formula, we get circumference is 2 times pi times r. When we say an exact answer, we want to leave the final answer in terms of pi. In other words, we're not going to replace pi with 3.14. So for my exact answer, so if I plug in my r, I'm going to get c equals 2 times pi times 22, which of course gives me 44 pi. For the exact answer, we have 44 times pi centimeters. We're done. Pi cannot be rewritten as a fraction. It is an irrational number, we like to say. So I can't, if I were to write it as a decimal in any shape or form, it is considered rounded. So to leave it exact, we're going to leave it in terms of pi. Now if we do an approximate answer, now we're going to go ahead and replace our pi with 3.14. So we'll do 44 times 3.14, which will give us 136 or 138.16 centimeters. In the construction world, we'd rather have the calculation here, the approximate answer, rather than the exact answer, because again, you can't end pi, so you can never finish the final answer. But in mathematics, we prefer exact as much as possible. So in the context of class, if it wants exact answer, we leave it in terms of pi. All right, let's do a couple more examples. This time, we are going to look at a figure. Now, the first example, we have a pentagon with 5 sides. Each side is 3 meters. Since this is not one of our basic shapes that we've talked about, we need to use the definition of perimeter. So the perimeter is the sum of all the sides. So here, I would have 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. Now, since they are the same length and there are 5 sides, we can simplify this by just doing 5 times 3, which then of course is going to be 15, and then we write down the m for the units of meters. That's it. All we do is use definition. Bam. All right, so now let's find the circumference of the figure. Remember that this is a circle, so we want to find the circumference, which is c equals 2 pi r. Here, the challenge is that I'm getting 15 for my diameter, not my radius. So the diameter is always twice the radius. What that tells me is that if I were to divide the diameter by 2, I would then get my radius. So here, my radius is actually equal to 15 divided by 2, or r is 7.5 centimeters. So let's go ahead and plug that into the equation. C equals 2 times pi times 7.5, which is going to be me 15 pi centimeters. This would be my circumference. Now you might be wondering, wait a minute, 15 was just our diameter. Can't we just do the diameter times pi? And the answer is yes. When you're trying to find the circumference, you can multiply pi by the diameter instead of 2 times r, because they are equivalent. However, when we talk about area, volume, and surface area, we are required to use the radius, which is why I went back to using the radius for the circumference. Now it's your turn. Please pause the video and practice these two problems to find the perimeter or circumference of each. All right, hopefully you've paused the video and gave yourself some time to work on these two problems. Here's the answers. For the first one, we are looking at a circle, so we're going to use the formula C equals 2 pi r, or 2r. In this one I have 2r pi, but again, multiplication is commutative, so it doesn't matter the order, as long as we have a 2 and a pi and an r. So here our radius is 18, so we're just going to plug in 18. We have an exact answer of 36 pi meters, and then we have an approximate answer of 113.10 meters. When it comes to the second question, we have a triangle. So by definition, we're just adding the sides together. So we're left with 5 plus 12 plus 13, which is going to give us a total of 30 yards. Now we're going to talk about compound figures. Compound figures are figures that are made up of 2 or more shapes. We can see over here that we have a rectangle as well as half a circle. In this structure, it might be hard to see, but we actually have a square with 2 triangles attached to it. Please note that the definition of perimeter is the same. I'm still looking at the sum of all the sides. But what might change is how the formulas are, the formulas might have to be altered depending on what's present. For example, when it comes to the silo here, we are left with these 2 sides here and then half a circle. So we're going to have to manipulate the formula that way. When it comes to this with the rectangle or with the square and the 2 triangles, we have this side, here, 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 here. So we still have to add up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides, but 2 of those sides are going to be from the square, and the 2 sides are going to be from one triangle and 2 sides from the other. So we might have to manipulate the equations to help us fit the situation that's given to us. So let's practice with that. Here's one of our compound figures. It's actually the silo from the previous problem, or previous slide. We want to find the perimeter of the figure. Remember, the perimeter means the sum around an enclosed region. So what we want is actually this side, this side, this side, and this curvature. The question is, how do we find it? If we know this is 27, we also know, by definition, that this is 27. Because what we have is a rectangle. We have a rectangle right here. Do we know this side here? Yes, we do. We have a rectangle, so this must be 22 feet. So right now we have the perimeter is equal to 2 times 27 plus 22. If we were just had the rectangle, we would do 2 times 27 and 2 times 22. But this line here is actually inside the figure and is not part of the perimeter. So I only need 22 once. This is how I'm changing or modifying the formula based on the situation that we have. Now we have to figure out the curvature. We know how to find the circumference of a circle. It's 2 pi r. But here we only have half a circle. So we're going to need to take half of that perimeter. We also have the diameter of 22, which means my radius is 22 over 2, which is 11. So now I'm going to add 2 times pi times 11 divided by 2. This part is the rectangular portion, and this is the half circle. So I'm going to get my P is equal to 54 plus 22 plus 11 pi. So P equals, let's see, 52 or 54 plus 22 is going to be 76 plus 11 pi. If I wanted an exact answer, I would be done. Usually when you have compound figures though, you usually want to have the approximate answer. So we're going to go ahead and approximate this by calculating pi as 3.14. So 76 plus 11 times 3.14, which will give us 110.54 feet. There we have it. Let's practice one more example. Here we want to find the perimeter of the figure, but we have majority as a circle and then there's a piece of it cut out. So we want to make sure we have this curvature and these two sides. We know how to find the circumference of a circle. We know that it would be 2 pi times r. We know that the radius is 7 based on the structure here. But we don't want the entire circle. We only want so much of it. In fact, we only want 3/4 of it. So we're going to do 3/4 times 2 times pi times 7. Now, that is going to cover this portion. But we also have to include these two sides. Well, I know this side is 7. But what is this side? Well, by property of a circle, this is also 7. In fact, this can be seen as a square. So we took out a portion of a square from the circle. But since we only have two sides of that square, we're only going to do 2 times 7 instead of 4 times 7. So again, we are modifying the formulas based on what we're given and based on what we have. So here I'm going to get my P. I'm going to have 3 times 2 times 7, which is going to be 14 times 3, which is 42 over 2 pi, and then I'm going to add 14. Again, if I wanted an exact answer, this is inches. If I want an exact answer, I'm done. But let's go ahead and approximate this answer. 42, that should be divided by 4. My apologies. (42) divided by 4 is going to be 10.5 if I remember correctly. Yep, so we have 10.5 times pi, which is 3.14 for our rounding purposes. 2.9 plus 14. So we get 46.97 inches. We're done. In class, we're going to practice some of these so that way you can help see the shapes and use those formulas.